The laws. Ecclesiasticus chapter 39, verse 1. But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High and is occupied in the meditation thereof will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient and be occupied in prophecies. He will keep the sayings of the renowned men, and where subtle parables are, he will be there also. He will seek out the secrets of grave sentences and be conversant in dark parables. He shall serve among great men and appear before princes. He will travel through strange countries, for he hath tried the good and the evil among men.
So how's your week been?
I'm glad to be here. It's just very tired, very tired. But just
Did you
busy.
hear?
Yes, absolutely. On the negative, but yes, I'm glad to be here. I'm in there.
I had pretty much uneventful week.
Okay. Okay. Well, family, everybody.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, say family, not family, but I should. Oh yeah, man, I passed the officer that was killed in the accident. I actually passed through and saw them trying to resuscitate.
Oh, it was in the.
But I thought it was maybe a shooting. I didn't know it was an officer that was down.
Today?
No. This was the officer that just got killed in an automobile accident. It was the runaway car hit him.
Okay, I may have seen something.
Yeah, I remember that.
He was right over there at our spot.
Jennings,
No,
Bell
right
Fountain.
there at Chambers in Bell Fountain.
Mhm.
Right there by the store, the ruler store.
Young officer?
Yeah.
I think I saw something flash on my phone
Yeah.
about
Mm.
an officer.
I've seen it before. About 40 something.
Mm.
So about maybe 47. But I've seen it before. Because the venues, football, things like that. Because he's football coach for Millville. He was on the force for like 14 years.
Mm.
Brown, County Brown?
Yeah, Tommy Brown.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
447.
447. The Metzora, leprosy, must not shave signs of impurity in his hair. Leviticus 13:33. He shall be shaven, but the scale, the skull, shall he not shave, and the priest shall not shut up him that hath the skull 7 days more.
The Metzora must publicize his condition by tearing his garments, allowing his hair to grow, and covering his lips. Leviticus chapter 13, 45, verse 45. And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, unclean, unclean.
Prescribed rules for purifying the Metzora, leprosy. Leviticus 14:2. This shall be the law of the leper in the day of the cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest.
The Metzora must shave off all his hair prior to purification. Leviticus 14, verse 9. But it shall be on the seventh day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all his hair he shall shave off, and he shall wash his clothes. Also he shall wash his flesh in water, and he shall be clean.
Carry out the laws of the Tezorat, leprosy, of clothing. Leviticus 13:47. The garment also that the plague of leprosy is in, whether it be a woolen garment or a linen garment,
Carry out the laws of Tezorat, of houses. Leviticus chapter 13, verse 34. And in the seventh day, the priest shall look on the skull, and behold, if the skull be not spread in the skin, nor be in sight deeper than the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean.
Observe the laws of menstrual impurity. Leviticus 15 and 19. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even.
Observe the laws of impurity caused by childbirth. Leviticus chapter 12, verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman have conceived seed and born a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation for her infirmity. Shall she be unclean?
Observe the laws of impurity caused by a woman running issues. Leviticus 15 and 25. And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of her issue of her uncleanliness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean.
Observe the laws of impurity caused by a man's running issue, irregular ejaculation of infected semen. Leviticus 15, verse 3. And this shall be his uncleanness in his issue, whether his flesh run with his issue or his flesh be stopped from his issue. It is his uncleanness.
Observe the laws of impurity caused by a dead beast. Leviticus 11 and 39. And if any beast of which ye may eat die, he that toucheth the beast, the carcass thereof, shall be unclean until the eve.
Observe the laws of impurity caused by 8 shartzim insects. Leviticus chapter 11, verse 29. These also shall be unclean unto you among the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind.
Observe the laws of impurity of a seminal emission, regular ejaculation with normal seed. Leviticus 15 and 16. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water and be unclean until the even.
Observe the laws of impurity concerning liquid and solid foods. Leviticus chapter 11, verse 34. Of all meat which may be eaten, that on which such water cometh shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk in every such vessel shall be unclean.
Every person must immerse himself in a mikvah to become pure. Leviticus 15 and 16. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water and be unclean until the evening.
The court must judge the damages incurred by a goring ox. Exodus chapter 21, verse 28. If an ox gore a man or a woman, that they die, then the ox shall be surely stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be quiet.
The court must judge the damages incurred by an animal eating. Exodus 21 and 4. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself.
The court must judge the damages incurred by a pit. Exodus chapter 21, verse 33. And if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or an ass fall therein.
The court must judge the damages incurred by fire. Exodus 21:5. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free.
Not to steal money stealthily. Leviticus 19:11. You shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie one to another.
The court must implement punitive measures against the thief. Exodus 21:1. If a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep.
Each individual must ensure that his scales and weights are accurate. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 36. Just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin shall ye have. I am the Lord your God, which brought ye out of the land of Egypt.
Not to commit injustice with scales and weights. Leviticus 19:35. Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, in measure, in weight, or in measure.
Not to possess inaccurate scales and weights, even if they are not for use. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 13. Thou shalt not have in thy bag divers weights, a great and a small.
Not to move a boundary marker to steal someone's property. Deuteronomy 19:14. Thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which they of old time have set in thine inheritance, which thou shalt inherit in the land that the Lord thy God giveth thee to possess it.
Not to kidnap. Exodus chapter 20, verse 14. Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Not to rob openly. Wow. Leviticus 19:13. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning.
Not to withhold wages or fail to repay a debt. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 13. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning.
Not to covet and scheme to acquire another's possession. Exodus 20:15. Thou shalt not steal.
Not to desire another's possession. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 19. Neither shalt thou steal.
Return the raw object or its value. Leviticus 6:4. Then it shall be, because he hath sinned and is guilty, that he shall restore that which he took violently away, or the thing which he hath deceitfully gotten, or that which was delivered him to keep, or the lost thing which he found.
Not to ignore a lost object. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 3. In like manner shalt thou do with his ass, and so shalt thou do with his raiment, and with all lost thing of thy brothers which he hath lost, and thou hast found, shalt thou do likewise. Thou mayest not hide thyself.
Return the lost object. Deuteronomy 21:1. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his sheep go astray, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt in any case bring them again unto thy brother.
The court must implement laws against the one who assaults another or damages another's property. Exodus chapter 21, verse 8. If she please not her master, who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her unto a strange nation, he shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her.
Not to murder. Exodus 10:13. Thou shalt not kill.
All right. And we'll start at 482 next time. All right. Um, I don't know that I like this title for today's topic. But the topic we'll cover slavery from this book that I just started reading. And this book is touching on American slavery from from an economic perspective, and how slavery and the abolishment of slavery affected the United States Constitution, the writing of the United States Constitution. Okay, so we're going to briefly touch that. I wasn't able to go as deep into the book as I would have liked to. Due to time. And then, so with that, I want to kind of look at what did we do, right? So when, Michael Jackson had that song, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. So if we are God's chosen people, why did God allow us to go into slavery? If we are
in a financial,
just
slavery,
period.
Okay.
Period. We're God's chosen people. Why did God allow us to go into slavery? And then kind of so I want to kind of start off with that thinking, that question, and then go into the book, and then kind of look at, well, is there any restitution for the children of Israel? What's the end game? Where are we going? Are we to be servants forever in this land, America? And not just America, but in Europe, because wherever we are, we're oppressed. We are an oppressed people. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to touch through the readings, right? So we kind of have our minds. So as far as the title, I just put slavery and restitution. Slavery and restitution. I couldn't think of anything better.
What book were you reading?
I will show you the title of the book as soon as I get to it. As soon as we get to it, I'll share the title of that book. But I want to start off with Jeremiah. I'm going to go to Jeremiah chapter 1. And we start with verse 11.
Book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, and verse 11.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 11. Moreover, the word of the Lord.
Read that again.
Moreover,
there we go.
The word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou?
Okay.
And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree.
I see a rod of an almond tree. Okay, so yeah, imagine when he says he sees a rod of an almond tree, talking about a switch. Go get that switch, because I'm going to spank you, right? I see a rod of an almond tree. So turn that word rod into switch, meaning it's a stick, it's part of a tree, but it's not a limb. It's not something so ginormous. Okay. Keep reading.
12. Then said the Lord unto me, Thou hast well seen, for I will hasten my word to perform it.
Meaning I'm going to the things that I am telling you, the things that you are going to write down, Jeremiah, I'm going to bring these things to pass. So you're going to see these things unfold, Jeremiah. So some of the things that Jeremiah prophesied about in terms of going into captivity are historical events. They indeed happened, past tense. But does that take away from it happening in the future? No, there are some things in the book of Jeremiah that have not yet happened. Okay, so let's continue.
13. And the word of the Lord came unto me to the second time, saying, what seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. So
here Jeremiah has now a second vision. And these two visions, generally, when there's one vision and a second vision, as with Daniel, as with Joseph, the second time around, that means that the thing is confirmed. This thing is not, not good, or this thing, whatever that it is, the vision is. This is the second time you're having this vision. Okay, read.
14. Then the Lord said unto me, out of the north an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land.
Upon all of the children of Israel. Read.
For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, said the Lord, and they shall come, and they shall set everyone his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about, and against all the cities of Judah.
All the cities of Judah. Read.
And I will utter my judgments against them, touching all their wickedness, who have forsaken me, and have burned incense unto other gods, and worship the works of their own hands.
So God is ticked off, and we see it verse 16, exactly why he's ticked off. Because the children of Israel practice wickedness. The children, and how do they practice wickedness? He says they have burned incense unto other gods. How do they practice wickedness? They have worshiped the works of their own hands. Okay, go back up to verse 11.
Verse 11. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou?
What seest thou?
And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree.
I see a rod of an almond tree. Go to Ezekiel chapter 7 and verse 10. Ezekiel chapter 7 and verse 10.
All right, the book of Ezekiel chapter 7 and verse 10. Behold the day, behold, it is come. The morning is gone forth. The rod hath blossomed. Pride hath bubbled.
Has budded, right? Behold the day. Behold, it is come. The morning is gone forth. The rod hath blossomed. So this thing, so like we see trees, we see springtime, right? So it's manifesting. Okay. And then comma, pride. So what did the rod blossom? What is the fruit of the tree? What's the flower of the tree, of the stick? Pride. Pride hath budded. Says it right there. Read on, verse 11.
Verse 11.
And up, who are we talking about? Go to 7, chapter 1.
at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Ezekiel 7 and verse 1. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, also, thou son of man, thus saith the Lord God unto the land of Israel.
The land of Israel, read.
And the end is come upon the four corners of the land.
Okay.
Now is the end come upon thee, and I will send mine anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense upon thee all thy abominations.
So who are we talking about?
Israel.
We're talking about Israel, the wickedness that Israel has done. So now jump back down to verse 11, because if we saw at verse 10, the rod has budded. And what did it bud? It budded pride. So the flower, the fruit is pride. As we continue, verse 11.
Verse 11, violence is risen up into a rod of wickedness.
Look at that. So not only is there pride, there's violence. You hate your fellow brother. Man against man, husband against wife, wife against husband, parents against children, children against parents. That's what's going on in our society. Like right now, even 2021. What is the what's the marital rate in our community?
In our community,
Probably, well, in our community, I'm saying probably less than 30%.
40%. And that's horrible. Because how can a community, meaning Negroes, how can a community establish itself without unity? And one of the first unities is that between a man and a woman.
Mhm.
That's one of the first, because that man leaves his mother's house, and then who does he attach himself to? Or that woman leaves her father's house, who does she attach herself to? Right? So the two become one
And start a family.
and start a family. And in that family,
Community.
this creates the community. And I was going to say, in that family are teaching these values, but that's not happening. Right? So hence it says at verse 11, violence has risen up. Okay? Read again, verse 11.
From the top. Violence is risen up into a rod of wickedness. None of them shall remain, nor of their multitude, nor of any of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Neither shall there be wailing for them. The time is come.
That's it. Go to Isaiah chapter 10, verse 5.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 10, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I'm not there.
okay.
Okay, I'll get there. I don't hold anybody up. Is that okay?
Right? Because it said in Jeremiah, right? Jeremiah 1 and 11, it says, I see a rod of an almond tree. So we're getting some understanding on this rod, on this switch, on this stick. Okay, so we saw that what budded up was pride. And with that pride was violence. Okay. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 5. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 10 and verse 5. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger and the staff in their hand is mine indignation.
O Assyrian. So now the Lord is going to use a nation that is not his. He is going to use a nation to chastise the children of Israel. O Assyrian, the rod, the stick, the switch. Boy, go outside and break me off a switch.
Yeah.
right? So the Lord says, "O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation." So I'm finna get into that tail.
Yeah. Mom and dad.
That's what the Most High says. I'm finna get into that tail. Go to Daniel chapter 4, verse 37.
The book of Daniel, chapter 4, and verse 37. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praised and extolled and honored the King of heaven. All woes,
All whose
whose works are true, and his ways judgment. And those that walk in pride, he is able to abase.
he is able to abase. So what happened? Children of Israel walked in pride. Isaiah chapter 3 talks about how the women walked mincing, haughty and so forth. And he goes in deep on how he was going to deal with the women. So he says, Nebuchadnezzar is saying, God, you are such a God that you will cause prideful individuals to become abased, to become low, to be humbled. But those individuals who humble themselves, who give honor, hey, Lord, I can't do nothing without you. All right, I'm gonna be merciful with you. Right? So what happened? We went into slavery because we as a people, as a nation, no, we were not humble. So we've been brought low. We've been made a base. That's the status of us today. Go back to Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 14. Verse 13.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, and verse 13. And the word of the Lord came unto me the second time, saying.
So the first time was the vision of the almond tree, which we see is pride, violence. It's us behaving out of order, us not getting it right. Okay, here comes a second vision to confirm the first. Read.
Saying, what seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot.
A seething pot. A seething pot means that's that big pot when you want to cook those neck bones and and butter beans. You want to cook the greens and so forth, so that it's gonna sit in that water boiling for several hours. I'm gonna get this thing real tender. I'm gonna cook this thing down to the marrow. Read.
And the face thereof is toward the north. Then the Lord said unto me, out of the north an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land.
So the cooking down to the marrow, right down to the bone, is coming from the north. The fire is coming from the north. The danger is coming from the north. Okay? This hot water is coming from the north. Read.
15. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north.
See there? For lo, for indeed, for certainly. I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north. Read.
Saith the Lord, and they shall come, and they shall set every one his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem.
And the gates of any city is where the seat of power is. So the gates of Missouri is Jefferson City. The gates of Florissant is just up the road. Try to establish a business in the city of Florissant without going to the gates. In other words, without purchasing your business license, right? So the gates is the seat of power. Okay, so he says, entering at the gates. He says, and I will set everyone his throne at the entering of the gates. So these other nations, what other nations? The kingdoms of the north. So that establishes the who is going to do this. Read.
And against all the walls thereof round about,
and
against all the cities of Judah.
And against all the cities of Judah. All the cities of Judah. You live in Wellston, I'm coming against you. You live in Pine Line, I'm coming against you. You live in Jennings, I'm coming against you. I'm coming against you. Okay? Go to Jeremiah chapter 25, verse 9. Start at verse 8.
Jeremiah chapter 25 and verse 8. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, because ye have not heard my words, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, saith the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I will bring them against.
And will bring them against this land. Read on.
I will bring them against this land and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment and a hissing and a perpetual desolation.
So I'm going to bring these families. Nebuchadnezzar, who was the ruler of the Babylonians, against you. So Babylon is coming against you. Historically, Babylon is coming against you. Revelation, spiritually, Babylon is coming against you. Pause. Let me see where this is, because I didn't write this one down. I started to, and then I said, I would be all right.
I just didn't write it down.
Yeah, here we go. Revelation chapter 17 and 5. Revelation 17 and 5.
The book of Revelation, chapter 17, and verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery.
Mystery, secretive. Mystery, done in darkness. Mystery. Read.
Babylon the Great.
Babylon the Great. Now, at this time, Babylon is already destroyed. At the time of this writing, if we looking purely from a historical perspective, at the time of this writing, Babylon has already been destroyed. So then how could the writer, John, be writing Babylon? Because we're talking about a nation that is going to take on the spirit of Babylon. Meaning they're going to do the things that the ancient city, Babylon, did, which got them in trouble. This city is going to do those same things. They're going to embody those same things. Make sense?
Yes.
Go ahead, read.
The mother of harlots and abomination of the earth.
And abomination of the earth. All right, so let's go back now. So we're stating that in Jeremiah chapter 25, verse 9, we see families of the north. This spiritual Babylon is coming against the children of Israel. Okay, go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 49.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and 49.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth.
As swift as the eagle flieth. So this nation is being compared to an eagle and the speed of an eagle. Okay. Continue.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the persons of the old, nor show favor to the young.
This nation is heartless. This nation that's going to come and enslave the children of Israel is heartless. They're merciless. There's no compassion in this nation. Read.
51. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle
Mm.
and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed.
So he's going to come in, he's going to eat up all that you have labored. So the fruit of your cattle, that's the offspring. He's going to eat that. He's going to steal it. He's going to eat it. But that work was for you. But this other nation is going to come and eat it. This other nation is going to come and eat up your corn, eat up your wine, or drink up your wine. All this work that you do. Read.
Which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind,
Mm-hmm.
or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee.
Until he have destroyed thee. Read.
52. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates,
Mm-hmm.
until thy high and fence walls come down.
Right, the high and fenced walls. That's your protection. Until your protection come down. Your men of war, the men that are there to protect the city, that's coming down. The brick and mortar, that's coming down. This man is coming. He is going to destroy you. Read.
Wherein thou trusted throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee.
Read.
And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee, in the siege, and the straightness,
and in the straightness, narrowness,
and in the straightness,
uh-huh,
wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee.
Wherewith the enemy shall distress thee. Okay, so this is the history, the prophecy that was going to happen. And this history, this prophecy took place after the book of Jeremiah. If we look at Jeremiah as a historical event, as a historical writing. So from the perspective that the book of Jeremiah is a historical writing, and because you'll get those that will argue and say, well, the children of Israel went into Babylonian captivity, and Jeremiah wrote about the children of Israel going into Babylonian captivity. Yes, they did. And they only served for 70 years. So how can you argue that you all are the children of Israel? Because these are our records. Because these prophecies point to a future time beyond what Jeremiah was writing about. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? You understand what I'm saying?
I did, but I'm just trying to connect it all.
Okay. So I'm hitting it quick, but I'm just attempting to establish Jeremiah, the man, the prophet, said that we, the children of Israel, are going to go into captivity. People from the north, Babylon. Within the book of Jeremiah, children of Israel went into Babylonian captivity for 70 years. So you will get scholars who would argue, come on, Michael, stop it, because that's done and over with. So went to Revelation and to Deuteronomy to try to show that, yes, that is a historical event. But furthermore, Jeremiah is letting us know there's going to be a future trouble.
And he was a prophet,
And so,
right?
And he was a prophet. So Deuteronomy is sharing with us of this future captivity that we would go through. Am I making sense now? Okay.
Sometimes it takes me a second time around.
Are you good? You're good.
Connect.
Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 15.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 5, in verse 15. Lo, I will bring a nation upon you from far, O house of Israel, saith the Lord. It is a mighty nation. It is an ancient nation, a nation whose language thou knowest not.
We just read that in Deuteronomy, whose language we don't know. Read.
Neither understandest what they say.
Keep reading.
Their quiver is as an open
Sepulchre.
sepulchre.
Uh-huh.
They are all mighty men.
Mhm.
And they shall eat up thine harvest, and thy bread which thy
You know what a quiver is, yes? Quiver holds the arrows. Quiver holds the arrows. Their quiver is as an open sepulchre. Out comes the arrow, boom, you're dead. Out comes the 9mm, you're dead. I can't breathe, you're dead. Okay, read.
17. And they shall eat up thine harvest, and thy bread which thy sons and thy daughters should eat. They shall eat up the flocks and thine herds. They shall eat up the vines and thy fig tree. They shall impoverish thy fenced cities, wherein thou trustest with the sword.
With the sword. So every little thing we try to build, they're going to come through and destroy it. You try to build Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah. They don't come and destroy it. Jealousy, Rosewood, Kinlock, they're going to come and destroy it. You try to build it, they're going to come and destroy it. To the end, right now, this day, you have conversations with people to say, we need to buy some land and have our own community, have our own schools and this, that. No, because, I mean, all they're going to do is destroy it again. Right? To the end, when I encounter individuals, because I have encountered individuals who reply with that thinking, you know, number one, it's showing that this nation has destroyed us. We are destroyed. We don't even have the courage to say, let's come together. Let's buy some land and build together. Let's take our children out of this public school system and put our children in Israelite school systems where they're learning our laws, learning the Bible as a foundation, learning their history, instead of having George Washington on the wall and all these other faces on the wall. Let's have King David, who was black. Let's have Christ, who was black, on the wall to instill in our children a sense of self-worth.
Like an example, maybe the Panthers, what they tried to do.
Correct. Now with that, and
So that's
so
one example I can get back upon me, about me, not to say that they were, did things the right way, but that's what I came up with when you said Sabbath. Yeah.
correct. So now here's the thing. Go to, I'm deviating just
Sorry, that's me.
a bit.
Me too.
Go to Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 26.
Start from the top.
26 in 26. Yep, 26 and 1. Yep. Perfect.
The book of Leviticus 26 and 1. Ye shall make you no idols nor graven images, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any images of stone in your land to bow down unto it, for I am the Lord your God.
So read this, understanding that this is the condition. This is the condition. This is the condition. Don't do these things. Don't do these things. This is the condition. Read.
Now 2 is going to be 2. Ye shall keep my Sabbath and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord.
This is the condition. Do this. Always. This is the condition. Read on.
If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them.
If ye walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them. Read.
Then will I give you rain in due season.
Okay.
And the land shall yield her increase.
Okay.
And the trees of the field shall yield their fruit.
So if you do these things, then when you plant those trees, I'm going to give you rain so that the tree grows. When you plant the corn, I'm going to give you rain that the corn grows. When you plant the sweet potatoes and the squash and the greens and the yams and ABCXYZ, I'm going to give you the rain so that those things grow. Why? So now you got nourishment for your body. Okay, so now you're one of your basic needs of life is fulfilled. God has, I'm gonna bring you the rain. Read on.
5. And your threshing shall reach into the vintage.
And so when you thresh the wheat, when you thresh the grapes, when you thresh the oats, these things, you're gonna have more than enough. I'm going to fill you up. Read.
And the vintage, let me say it again, and the vintage shall reach unto the sowing time.
Mm-hmm.
And ye shall
the vintage, meaning that which you have put up in storage, that's going to last you until the next go round that you have to thresh and store up. So your pantry, your cellar is going to stay stocked with fresh goods. Read.
And ye shall eat your bread to the full, and dwell in your land safely.
Dwell in your land safely. Read.
And I will give peace in the land.
And
ye shall lie down. And none shall make you afraid.
But see, if we try to buy some land, all they'll do is just come and nope. The word of God said, you're gonna lay down in peace. You're gonna go to sleep. You're gonna snore loud. The cow's gonna be saying, would he shut up already? Right? Because you don't snore except you're extremely tired, and your mind is at rest. Those are the conditions to fall into a deep, deep, deep sleep. Because if you got stuff on your mind, it's hard to fall into a deep sleep. Right. Okay, read.
Start at the top. Leviticus 26:6. And I will give peace in the land, and ye shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid. And I will rid evil beasts out of the land.
Evil beasts, bears, cougars, lions, jaguars. Nope, they won't come and endanger the encampment, the city. Read.
Neither shall the sword go through your land.
So folks coming through with their weapons in this day and age, with their the AR-15, right? No, those things not going to come through. That's the sword. Those things not going to come through. Read.
7. And ye shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword.
Because if they do come, I'm going to give you such courage. We give the men such courage, you're going to chase them away. Those that come to try to bring harm your way because of jealousy, because of pure hatred, what have you, no, you're going to chase them away. Read.
8. And 5 of you shall chase 100.
How many?
100.
5 of you shall chase 100. 5 of you gonna ward off 100 of them. They pull it up in they F-15s, this, that, and the third, trucks, and so on and so forth. And the 5 of y'all like, look here, you better get out of my, get gone. But you're doing the things that we read about it, verse 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 3. You're doing those things. That's the requirement. Read.
And 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight.
Look at that. So why should we fear? Yes, Oklahoma took place, Rosewood, but tell me, show me, were those communities keeping the commandments of the Most High God? Those communities of our people keeping the commandments, or were they going to church on Sunday? Were they keeping Christmas? Were they celebrating birthdays? Because all of those things hit off into idolatry. Every last one goes off into idolatry. Were they reading the Quran to the end for worship's sake? That goes off into idolatry. Okay. So we were at Jeremiah chapter 5 and 18 and 19 again. I don't know if we completely read that or not.
Say Jeremiah.
Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 18 and 19, because we were reading Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 15 through 19. I don't believe we made it to 18 just yet.
Chapter 5 through
Chapter 5, I want you to pick up at verse 18.
Okay, the book of Jeremiah, chapter 5 and verse 18.
Uh-huh.
Nevertheless, in those days, said the Lord, I will not make a full end with you.
In those days, in this day, 2021, 1960, 1930, 1890, did we come to a full end? Are we extinct? No, we're still here. I mean, and they did a number on us. A number was done on the children of Israel, but we're still here. Now, not only are we still here, we are waking up to who we are. Many of us are no longer calling ourselves Black, no longer calling ourselves niggas, no longer calling ourselves African Americans, which came about in 1984, March 25th, I believe it was. Okay, so we're no longer doing those things. We're saying, I'm an Israelite. The blood that runs through my veins is that of Jacob. I'm an Israelite from the tribe of Judah. How you know this? Because of the prophecies, because of the historical records, because of the Spirit of the Most High God. I know this. All right. But in that they did this number on us, we do have a lot going on. We have this thing called structural racism that exists today. Bear with me. I didn't have video queued up.
Before Jeremiah 5, who was read Leviticus?
Deuteronomy 28.
No, where we just left.
Oh,
Leviticus.
Leviticus 26, 1 through.
I thought you were going down. You were-
Scripture in my words and keynotes from you. I can read.
Okay.
So, what was it up? I noticed that we read 5 because we.
I'm going back. I'm gonna watch it.
Let me share it. I'll share with you all. I'll share.
Office.
Okay, so in this video, the question is, what is systematic racism in America? Okay, and I want to show 2 different videos to tackle the definition of systematic racism. And understanding systematic racism, we understand that it's really hard to tackle racism because of the multiple facets that make it up. Okay, and then so after this video, then we'll go into what kind of brought us to it. So here we go.
You might think racism in the U.S. is really a case of a few bad apples. A racist cop here, a so-called Karen there, a leader of a white supremacist group. You know, people who deliberately hate. But we can't blame racism in America on just a few bad apples. Think of our nation's problem as more like an apple pie, with the racial injustice baked right into every aspect of our society. Meet Ebony and Emily, 2 American babies, one black, one white. At the same time, same place, but Ebony will not get an equal slice of the pie, and that starts from birth. Because of her race, Ebony is 3 times more likely than Emily to die in the hospital as a newborn if her doctor is white. And once Ebony and Emily go to school, while both girls occasionally misbehave, studies show they won't face the same punishment. Ebony is 7 times more likely than Emily to be suspended, and 4 times more likely to be arrested on campus. When the 2 girls grow up and apply for jobs, odds are fewer employers will call Ebony back because she has a black-sounding name. And even though Emily and Ebony will get the same college degree once Ebony is hired statistically as a black person, she'll make an average of 25% less than Emily. So why didn't Ebony get an equal slice of that apple pie? It's because systemic racism is built into our country's DNA. In the 17th and 18th centuries, wealthy white men needed land, so they took it from indigenous people and then forced blacks into slavery. To justify using blacks for free labor, the whites in power promoted a myth that blacks were inferior. And as Seattle-based author Ijoma Oluo points out, our nation's institutions, politics, and policies were designed against the backdrop of that money-driven lie that Black people just weren't as worthy or as capable as whites.
Our school systems were built around this. Economic systems are built around this. Our government systems were built around this. And it is simply that things were designed to uphold this story, to uphold this exploitation.
And so I don't want to show the whole thing for copyright, but that's I'm gonna show one more video to again try to show provide us with a definition of systemic racism. Okay, but we do know, and the data is out there, that things are not equal. Things are not equal. Okay, so let me get other video. This other video, Trisha Rose, I believe is her name. I saw this video several years ago, and I really like how she put this together. I encourage you all to watch these videos in its entirety. Okay. And we're gonna go. We're gonna start 3 minutes. So now, and here's a professor, you know, giving her scholarly perspective. Let's start right there. I can't get it where I want it.
Okay, I'm going to start with the definition, because of course you can really talk about structural racism if you're not sure what you're talking about.
Okay, so let me make sure.
You're talking about definition, or structural racism if you're not sure what you're talking about. So what is structural racism? Before we can figure out how it works. So this is my operative definition. There are many, they share many of these traits. And the basic definition is that structural racism in the United States is the normalization and legitimization of an array of dynamics, historical, cultural, institutional, and interpersonal, that routinely advantage whites while producing cumulative and chronic adverse outcomes for people of color. Now, these words are long, and the definition may seem long, but it's important because they're key. If you look at just a couple of key words before we move along. Normalization. Normalization means that structural racism is built into the everyday practice. We're not talking about exceptional behavior, individual bad attitudes. We're not talking about the occasional negatively intentional policy. We're really talking about a process that happens in a normal everyday way, that goes on as part of our air that we breathe, but that is often quite invisible to us, not all of us, but some of us. But it's important that it can go on while we're sleeping, while we're fighting for justice, while we're doing whatever we're doing. Legitimization is important because we legitimize institutions, and I'm going to talk later about how this happens, that are actually functioning in structurally racist ways. The outcomes are clearly producing dramatic, cumulative, and chronic adverse outcomes, and they nonetheless have quite legitimacy. They have a lot of legitimacy. This is not something that is marginal, again, and on the side. The second piece of the definition that's really important is that structural racism is not just the past that has a legacy that's waning in the present. It has present formulation. So it's historical, yes, but it's also present tense. There are cultural elements to it. That means it has to do with the way we talk about race that help produce it. It's not just policies, but it is institutions and policies. We see it in government policy. We see it in corporations and their policies. We see it in educational institutions. And of course, it is also interpersonal. And by interpersonal, I don't just mean sort of screaming people at the Walmart, which seems to be a new problem we're having in the United States. But it does mean that, right? Because that's part of it. But it also means the ways in which we interact and the ways in which we create relationships with one another. So our project is really, it started as many things in my life academically have started, which is something that seems like I should be able to do it quickly and then takes like forever. So this is one of those, I can just explain structural racism to everyday people, do a multimedia project with a couple of videos, put them online on YouTube, pull up a website, do some research, bam, we'll be all set, 6 months. Okay, 2 years later, we're standing here in front of you, like really still working it out for a lot of different reasons, but we feel more and more convinced about the importance of the project and the importance of these areas. So what's happened for us is that we're trying to focus on these 5 critical areas where structural racism is highly dynamic and consequential. There are others, so don't even worry about asking me that. There are definitely others than these 5, but these 5 really apply to all of us in here. Hopefully not criminal justice, but if not, then that may itself be part of the puzzle, right? If you've never had a brush with the law. But the others for sure, housing, education, mass media, wealth, and jobs are just critical fundamental anchors. The outcomes in these areas determine fundamentally the quality of life, the sense of safety and security, and the opportunity that our citizens in this country have. So I want to lay it out this way for a moment, because this is usually how we talk about it. We talk about wealth, we talk about housing, we talk about media, whether it's representation and images of people of color or African Americans, which is the group we're going to mainly focus on, whether it's educational outcomes or the criminal justice system. We tend to look at these things in isolation from one another. And this is not a bad idea when we want to drill down, because if you want to look at the significance of, say, racialized wealth inequality, which is dramatic, and I'll point that out in a moment, you want to figure out why and how, so you have to go down and into it, right? You have to keep moving in more deeply. But at the same time, it's extremely important to think about how these gears, as we're thinking of them, work together. And they are actually not operating in a single sphere way, that there are interlocking effects. And this is key to our argument. This is key to our approach, that we think about how various aspects of society produce structural inequalities in ways that are interdependent, interactive, and compounding. This is extremely important because, again, if we find a disparity in, say, job discrimination or unemployment, there's a tendency to say, well, if we just fix that, we're good, right? But if you look at the interlocking effects and you come to the realization that in any one sphere, you have discrimination and inequality, past, present, and in policy and in thinking, and it's really driving inequality in other areas, you can't possibly think in a single sphere way to solve any given problem that we're dealing with. So we're
Okay, so, and she shows these, I thought this was a great visual to represent her idea, right? You can't look at these individual things, media, and think this is the cause of racism. Let's tackle media to fix racism. Education, this is the cause of racism. Let's tackle education to fix racism. No, all of these things are linked together and they're interwoven with one another. It's like a spider web. The entire web is connected. So what happens at the top of the web affects what happens on the left and right side of the web and all the way around the web. So all these things are connected. So as we go into the book, okay, and the title of this book is So the title of this book is A Slaveholders Union, Slavery, Politics, and the Constitution in the Early American Republic by George William Van Cleve. Okay, this is the front cover of the book. Okay, here's the front cover. And so in the introduction of this book, he explains that slavery, the institution of slavery, had this immense effect on how the writers of the Constitution wrote the Constitution. The institution of slavery had an immense effect on how the writers of the Constitution would think about and write about the Constitution. Okay. Money is a huge factor, right? I'm making a lot of money in this institution of slavery. So we're diving in, looking at slavery, and one might think, come on, Michael, slavery was such yesterday. Why are we talking about slavery? Slavery was 400 years ago. What does it matter today? How does it matter today? Hence me showing those two videos to show, no, all this stuff is connected. It's all connected in terms of what's going on and why we are where we are. All right, so let's go into it. Some of the things that he says, George William Van Cleve, that the book, let me go to the page. Bear with me.
Yeah, but hey, I was looking at her wheels, cognitive wheels, and how they connect. Then I think about a book. Well, I think about a gentleman I was trying to tell you about maybe a couple of weeks ago. It was the guy, one of the Jewish leaders, and murdered.
Okay.
He said that his people had some bullet points that they wanted to make sure that they control. If they control these things, then they would have the utmost power. And looking at her wheel card, those were some of the bullet points that he had
In his
the controlling of. This guy said the real Jews and the Gentiles. He said because the Gentiles, they were just dumb. They would believe anything. But that just reminded me, her wheel, her copy, of some of the bullet points that he said that they would have to control in order to have control.
Right.
And keep it.
So it opens up with his chapter 1. He titles it From Empire to Confederation, empire being the British Empire, and the British losing its control over the colonies in America. During the years from 1770 to 1780, as Great Britain's control over its mainland American colonies declined and then collapsed, the wealthy and politically influential imperial institution of slavery became the subject of unprecedented controversy. We'd never seen anything like this before. The decades' disruptions had conflicting consequences for slavery as Americans used their new political freedom on that issue in clashing ways. But American slavery emerged from the Revolutionary War, stronger as a political institution than it had been within the British Empire just prior to the Revolutionary War. So before the Revolutionary War, after the Revolutionary War, this system of slavery politically is now much more divisive. It's now much more stronger. Why? Because we're going to use it in political ways and political contests to position ourselves. We're going to like they do today. When they talk about LGBTQ, when they talk about all these different things, they use these things politically so that they can get one up over the political opponent, their political rival. Okay. This chapter explores how and why this occurred. Okay, so letting you know, we want to show you how it came about, why it came about, and it boils down to money. Okay, it boils down to power. It opens with a discussion of British imperial support for slavery and its character as an institution in the mainland America colonies shortly before the revolution. Next, so he goes on and telling us how the chapter is going to go about. He lets us know that the British Empire at first supported mainland slavery, but then just before the Revolutionary War, there were some problems surrounding slavery, which kind of helped bring about the war between the United States, the colonies, and Britain. And then how war itself affected slavery and how the slaveholders responded to the stresses related to the construction of the Constitution. So in other words, after the war, the folks who owned slaves, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, all these folks, Hamilton, all these folks who own slaves, who are in the seat of power, you know, how they are, they're thinking to the Constitution, because the Constitution is going to govern everyone in the sovereign land, right? So we're forming a new nation, and this nation's going to be called, right, the United States of America. So this Constitution, so that means, we got to be very careful in thinking about the laws that's going to govern everybody. I'm a slave owner, so we got to think very carefully about the laws, because I could be agreeing to a law that would shoot me in the foot with my 500 slaves, or I could be supporting a law that would, on the counter side of that, shoot me in the foot, and I only have one slave. So how do I, so we're constantly thinking, how do we craft these words, these laws that's going to govern everybody, in the land? That's what he's writing about. That's what he's this book, he's through the chapters, he's wanting to reveal to us. Okay.
Chess game? No, it's not like a chess game.
Chess game?
Chess.
Well, yeah, he's going to point some of those things out. But again, I didn't even complete chapter 1. I read the introduction, and then we got about halfway through the chapter 1. He talks about this case, which I thought was interesting. A major challenge to imperial slavery arose from a court attack on its legality in England. The closely watched 1772 case of Somerset versus Stewart. So here we have this case. I had to pull it up. So this guy, Lord Mansfield, okay, he rules to allow this Negro to be set free. This ruling is not only going to affect Britain, England, it's going to affect the United States. So here's the case. The case was the backdrop on the case. Somerset versus Stewart is a judgment of the English Court of King's Bench in 1772 relating to the right of an enslaved person on English ground soil not to be forcibly removed from the country and sent to Jamaica for sale. And this is the key language in here. They're very slick in the wording. Not to be forcibly removed from the country, from England, to be sent to Jamaica for sale. Okay, and that language is very key to what happens next. Okay, Lord Mansfield decided that the state of slavery is of such a nature that it is incapable of being introduced on any reasons, moral or political, but only by positive law, which preserves its force long after the reasons, occasions, and time itself from whence it was created is erased from memory. It is so odious that nothing can be suffered to support it but positive law. Whatever inconveniences, therefore, may follow from the decision, I cannot say this case is allowed or approved by the law of England, and therefore the black must be discharged. Okay, so now, why? So he goes on. Let's see if I can get to the point. Let me read this part to you. So, so this judge, after hearing the matter, he meditated on how he was going to judge over 30 days, according to Wikipedia. Okay, so he didn't give a ruling then and there after each side had given their arguments. Thank you. 30 days, he then gives his rulings, his judgment to the matter, because the judgment will have effects, and he understands this, to the slavery, because there is slavery in England. England is a slave state country, right? It's a slave state. Okay, and America is, it's its colonies. So it sends colonies to America with slaves, you know, and so it's going to affect. He understands this. Let me see if I can find the point.
I'm wondering if, I'm just guessing, I don't know, I'm just wondering if that was the same case that they was trying to portray in Amistad. Wasn't it a scene in Amistad?
Yeah, but Amistad took place in America, if I'm not mistaken.
And
Did it?
I don't know where it took place. It took place on TV.
Yeah, I know that much.
But I'm saying, you know, just that courtroom, I don't know if this was the case. Kind of.
Okay, so here is I'll read just a little bit of this. Trinity term, June 22nd, 1772. We pay due attention to the opinion of Sir Philip York and Mr. Talbot in the year 1729, by which they pledged themselves to the British planters for the legal consequences of bringing slaves into this kingdom, of their being baptized, which opinion was repeated and recognized by Lord Hardwicke, sitting as chancellor on the 19th of October, 1749, to the following effect. He said that trover is a law saying that is a legal thing where I'm gonna come against you for damages. You've caused damages, so I'm gonna come against you for those damages. That's what trover. That trover would lay for a Negro slave. That a notion prevailed that if a slave came into England or became a Christian, he thereby became emancipated. But there was no foundation in law for such a notion. That when he and Lord Talbot were attorney and solicitor general, this notion of a slave becoming free by being baptized prevailed so strongly that the planters industriously prevented their becoming Christians. So no, you can't, no, you're not gonna become a Christian, because you use my nigga. Upon which their opinion was taken, and upon their best consideration, they were both clearly of opinion that a slave did not in the least alter his situation or state toward his master or owner, either by being Christianed or coming to England. That though the statute of Charles II had abolished tenure so far, that no man could be a villein regardans. Yet, if he would acknowledge himself a villain engrossed in any court of record, he knew of no way by which he could be entitled to his freedom without the consent of his master. We feel the force of the inconveniences and consequences that will follow the decision of this question. Yet, all of us are so clearly of one opinion upon the only question before us that we think we ought to give judgment without adjuring the matter to be argued before all the judges as usual in the habeas corpus, and as we at first intimated an intention of doing in this case. The only question then is the cause return sufficient for the remanding him? If not, he must be discharged. So they did, at the end of it all, they determined, okay, you brought this man, you brought him here on this land, and you want to, because he ran away, you want to sell him off into Jamaica. Nah, you can't sell him off into Jamaica. So we'll make him free. And then shortly thereafter comes another case involving this woman, wherein her master would pass away. Did I write that one down? I didn't write that one down. Her master would pass away, and in the master's will, it was a female master, in the master's will, declaring that upon her death, the slaves would be rendered free. But the master neglected a particular step or what have you. Therefore, the slave was not allowed to be set free. And again, so this is also during the time period of this Lord Mansfield, during the time period of this guy right here, Lord Mansfield. And so that became the case known as, did I write that down? Matthew and someone. I didn't write it down. Forgive me, you all. So showing the kind of the hypocrisy, the duality in how slavery is affecting the lives of everyone. All right. So let's continue on. This case is Somersault versus Stewart. Read the document. Let's go on back to this book. Some other highlighted things I kind of found in 18, 19. Yep. So also what he pointed out in this book is that slavery is no longer going to be governed by the government in America after the Revolutionary War, but that it's going to be governed by the slaveholders. So that gives power to the individual opposed to the government. So because you're a slave holder, you're a slave holder, I'm a slave holder, right? We own slaves. So I do with my nigga as I please. You do with your niggas as you please. You do with your niggas as you please. And government can't tell me what to do with my niggas, and so on and so forth, right? So you may disagree with what I do with mine. He may disagree with what you do with yours.
So that sounds like federal laws and state laws, individual counties, so forth, so on.
And so let me see if I can find, get on that page.
It's just sleep.
Yep, 19. Here we go, right here. Is this large enough on the screen? Historians increasingly recognize that slavery emerged from the revolution stronger as a political institution than it had been within the British Empire just prior to the revolution. But contrary to the view of David Bryan Davis and other leading scholars, the evidence reviewed here suggests that this result was not paradoxical, contradictory of one another. The revolution led to the creation of an American government that was far less capable of controlling slavery than the British Empire had been. It shifted the political balance of power in the new government in a direction strongly favorable to slaveholders. Revolutionary natural rights and egalitarian ideology had limited power to undercut slavery in the face of its powerful influence and of countervailing principles of thought about natural rights and limited government. The disruptive effects of slave flight and slavery's interference with American military operations during the Revolutionary War have been overstated. As a result, the crucible of the revolution, slave state representatives obtained substantial protection for slavery from the new American government. The exceptionally decentralized federalism of the Articles of Confederation, ardently advocated by slave state representatives, meant that the continental government would have no legal power either to regulate or abolish slavery in the states, or as a practical matter, to control the slave trade or slave imports. And new evidence suggests that the Confederation also agreed in the Articles to protect slave owners against state interference with their control over the interstate movement of slaves, including slave imports and the recapture of fugitives. Slave property was exempt from the Confederation's state taxation quota calculations and excluded from its state military quotas. Okay, is it making sense? A little bit? Okay. So all this power was given to the individual slave holder. If I want to take my slave across state line and work them on this land, you government, you can't tax me. If I want to, so I got a lot of power with this property, this human property of mine. So having that power, I am, if I'm in the Senate, then I'm really going to be careful with the language that goes into the Constitution. If I'm not in the legislative body, you know, a member of the legislature, the Senate, House of Republic, then I am definitely going to let my voice be heard to the representatives that go to Washington. I'm going to be writing them a letter saying, Henry Pickett, do know, as your constituent in this county of Georgia, in this state of North Carolina, with 500 acres, please note that when you go and you all are discussing these laws, how powerful I am, blah, blah, blah. Consider me. Better make sure you pay attention to me. Same thing that goes on today, right? So here they are about to write these laws. So what this author is doing, he's painting the picture. He's giving us the context. He's putting us in the time period to see how these things, how the mind would be thinking in the time period. Think about it. You own 60 slaves, and all this power is granted to you. How much are you gonna fight for ABCXYZ? You're gonna fight tooth and nail for these things. You don't give that up.
It's a young people say you're gonna fight hella hard. Hella hard.
Do you understand now? Okay. So now let's look at some more of this. Come on. Second one slow. Okay. Yep, this is where I want to be. All right. This right here. Again, everything that so far what he's doing, the writer, the author of this book, he's giving us information to put us in the mind of the time. He's creating context for us to understand the matter. Okay. So here he writes, this is on page 20. In 1770, the major slaveholding colonies of the British Empire, or Plantation America, accounted for 25% of the total private physical wealth of the empire, even though they contained only about 12% of its total population. So as an individual, I'm a slaveholder. The bulk of my wealth, 25% of my wealth, comes from my slave holdings in America. I'm here in Liverpool, England. doing my whatever here in England, textile, who knows what I'm doing, right? But 25% of my wealth is my slave holdings in America. Okay. Accounted for 25% of the total private physical wealth of the empire, even though they contained only about 12% of its total population. Slavery was the principal means of wealth creation in plantation America. On the eve of the Revolution, Crown policy, meaning England, Crown policy, particularly in the 18th century, was designed to maximize British investment in colonial slave plantation agriculture, which most contemporaries believed necessitated protection for the slave trade and for slavery as well. So we got to provide this protection because of the we primarily use these slaves for agricultural purposes. They're the ones breaking the ground and doing all the gut-wrenching work on the fields. Okay, plowing the land, harvesting the wheat, and so on and so forth. Britain had legalized and subsidized the slave trade beginning in the mid-17th century. By 1770, it had firmly supported its imperial slave trade for more than 100 years. Britain dominated the 18th century transatlantic slave trade, and its traders made thousands of voyages across the Atlantic during the century. Its participation in the trade maintained a reliable supply of relatively inexpensive colonial forced labor, while also significantly enhancing British naval power. Most British supporters of the slave trade agreed with Malachi Postlewaite that the trade was an inexhaustible fund of wealth and naval power to this nation. Inexhaustible. This is such abundance to us. We need this slave system to continue. We cannot let it go. Okay. Did I read that? Yes. All right. During the 17th and 18th century, these goals led the Crown to protect slavery by disallowing several American colonial efforts to limit slave imports, by carefully regulating and controlling the classification of slaves as particular types of property in different colonies, and by approving brutal, repressive colonial slavery laws that minimized the cost of slaveholding. But Britain's intervention in the law and policy of slavery went beyond its direct supervision of colonial law. So if you live in England, you want to maximize your profits on slavery. And you want to hold on to slavery. Mm-hmm. You don't want to let it go. Now, in one of the other books that I've read, I don't think I've really kind of did a book study on it with the class here, was the book that I showed you a few weeks ago with the red cover. Mm-hmm. What's the title of that book? The title of that book was dealing with the womb and how slavery was the breeding of slaves. So Thomas Jefferson concocted this. He concocted, we're going to breed slaves. And they put this in motion, and they knew it was going to be a 20-year endeavor. So they're breeding slaves, and they're going to make the state of Virginia the place where those of the colony would come and purchase their slaves to take those slaves into North and South Carolina, into Georgia, into Texas, and so forth. But we're going to do this, and then we're going to abolish slavery, or we're going to end exportation of slaves.
From England abroad.
Uh-huh. And we're going to make it law come 1808. Now, because right now we're in 1770. But we see how our brothers over in England, how they're doing us. 1770. We see how our brothers over there are doing us. So we're gonna breed slaves. We're gonna breed them. We're gonna make it a law that they can't do this. That we can't export slaves. It's gonna be illegal to export slaves. But we're gonna continue to have slavery, but you can't import slaves into America. Rather, I'm sorry, you can't import them in. So we're gonna cut off because they taxing us too heavy. We gotta cut that. But from the British point of view, nah, we give you all this protection. And this protection we giving you. So from their point of view is, no, yeah, we will give you protection. We will definitely give you protection. I'm the man that will knock the other guy out. Why? Because you got those slaves that I'm getting all this money from. Meanwhile, the slave himself is being tossed to and fro with all this madness. With all this madness. Okay, let's continue on. Okay, yeah, I did that. I'm gonna read just a little bit more. Okay. All right, and then so now here on page 22, slavery. All right. And okay, here we go. Right here. Due in part to its strong imperial support, slavery had become a central economic institution in the mainland American colonies by 1770. Remember, 1776 is when America gets its independence from the Revolutionary War, 1776. Okay, so 1770. So 6 years later, you know. Okay, slaves had become a major economic asset class. Slaves had become a major economic asset class. Okay, with a conservatively estimated collective market value of about 14 million pounds, which is $2.4 billion today. Slaves constituted nearly 20% of total private wealth in the 13 colonies in 1774, 2 years before they would get their independence. 20% of my income, of my wealth, is tied up in slavery. You don't think I'm gonna protect that? Think you make $100,000 a year. Oh no. You know what? Since let's make things real in the Black community. Black community, you doing well if you make 42,000, 54,000 in the Black community. Because when you start getting 42, 54, 63, you're starting to do all right. Because the bulk of us don't make that kind of money.
Depending on
Right.
what city you live in.
Okay, now, so watch this.
East Coast, West Coast.
Let's say your gross, your take home is 60,000. That should take home 60,000. But now we're gonna take away 20% of that. Now your take home is 48,000. Let's say again, okay, so 48,000. You are an hourly worker. 48,000. That means you make $23.07 an hour. Okay. And again, $48,000. I'm taking slavery away because part of that 48,000 is due to the fact that you own slaves. So I'm gonna take 20% away from you. Your take home is now $38,400.
Nice chunk.
That's a huge chunk. That's $10,000 you took away from me. That's $10,000 you took from my livelihood. So they gonna fight. They gonna fight because you messing with my comfort of living. Okay. So let me read that sentence again. Slaves have become a major economic asset class with a conservatively estimated collective market value of about 14 million pounds, about 2.4 billion today. Slaves constituted nearly 20% of total private wealth in the 13 colonies in 1774. Slave prices in the Americas, including the mainland colonies, had steadily increased throughout the 18th century, with exceptions caused primarily by war, an important indication of the growing demand for slave labor. Everybody putting their money into slaves. It's like what? Everybody putting their money in Bitcoin these days. Slaves, I guess then was the Bitcoin. Slaves was the gold. That was the gold. Okay. A couple more things. Let me show.
I want to lock the door.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. In 1770, under British policy, slavery in most colonies was classical chattel slavery. So, chattel slavery. What is chattel slavery? I looked that up. Trying to move it. All right, thought I had it. chattel slave, according to it's the enslaving and owning of human beings. Their offspring, and their offspring is property, able to be sold, forced to work without wages, as distinguished from systems of forced unpaid low wage labor, also considered to be slave, right? Because indentured servitude is not slave.
Yeah.
Because they try to make they will argue and say that, you know, whites were enslaved. No, were never chattel slavery. Whites were indentured slaves.
The ones they were ditched.
They can buy themselves out. They can buy themselves out. They can be purchased out. Chattel slavery was perpetual.
Yeah. So yeah, the Irish try to say they were, you know, slaves, slaves. I guess, and then you can say that the Japanese Americans, they're trying to say that going, you know, 40s, they try to say they were slaves. I mean, they try to use anything they did.
Right. And so with what you in these amendments, 13th Amendment, the 14th, 15th, these amendments were put in place to favor the Negro. Those amendments were put in place to specifically favor the Negro.
Or rather, target the Negro.
And right, but now those same amendments, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, those same amendments now favor LGBTQ community, people who are in wheelchairs, women rights. It has lost its original purpose and meaning. So much so that we can't come to the table and fight for restitution. It no longer applies to us, when that was the original concept of its writing. So now we can't fight for restitution. We can't fight these educational institutions. Our ancestors is the reason that 200 years later, your college institution is what it is. 200 years later, our ancestors are the reason General Electric and so on and so forth is what it is. Our ancestors are the reason why Levi Strauss, the jean company, is what it is today. Our ancestors are the reason why many of these well-to-do institutions are well off because of our ancestors. And so our ancestors lost their lives and so forth to this due to slavery. And now we say, hey, slavery was an institution that, you know, was damaging, and we never got restitution. We never received restitution for these things. But then you get Mitch McConnell, who says, well, we gave you a black president.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. That's restitution. Okay, so I'm on page.
I heard someone, it wasn't so-called political leader. We gave y'all food stamps.
But now you have no legal stance. You have, so they can talk all they want to talk. All you can do is get mad. Because legally, what can you do? You lost, and we continue to give up. When we try to get a legal stance, then somehow we give way, we become soft and docile to the end. Oh yeah, well, you know, okay, yeah, LGBTQ, yeah, they should have rights as well. Yeah. Yeah, well, we forgive it. We forgive you. We forgive. No, yeah, I forgive you. I will forgive you when you give me my restitution. How can I forgive you? I think we talked about this a few days ago. How can I forgive you, but you are continuing to do the harm that you did? You have a husband and a wife. Try to give an analogy here. Husband and a wife. He beats his wife. Baby, I'm sorry. Whack. Baby, I'm sorry. You know I love you, baby. Whack. Baby, please forgive me. I forgive you. Whack, whack. Right? She tells her mother, he told me he was sorry. That's the fresh black eye you got, baby. Where'd you get that black eye? This morning. How can there be forgiveness? And he continues to do the act. Okay, what's the connection, Michael? What's the connection? We saw the 2 videos earlier tonight about systemic racism. And she had those wheels saying that these wheels, structural racism, that these wheels exist and that it's all connected. And in those wheels, she had housing, she had media, she had incarceration, she had economics. These things continue. We are still trying, in terms of education, in terms of housing, the first video, criminal justice, the first video we watched, and that was a more recent video. The first one was a more recent video. And she pointed out, she gives us a statistic stating in the first video that 20% more likely, I forget the number, that if this child, Ebony, is born of a white doctor, much more likely to die. So again, these things are perpetual. They continue. So the analogy of the husband and the wife, the analogy of the system, the oppressed system that we live in, these things are perpetual. These things over here, this structural racism, it's hard to see these things because they're so interwoven. She said, it's the air we breathe, right? These things become policy that we never even know that it's happening to us. because it's so ingrained in our system. Making sense?
It is.
Okay. So it's perpetual. So how can I forgive you? I can't forgive you. You have not repented. I can only forgive you when you repent. I can forgive. I can say, may the Lord cause you to repent, or I forgive you. But there's repentance and reconciliation go hand in glove. They're two separate things, but they're two separate things that work in step lock one with the other.
You say you can't forgive?
I can forgive you, but where's the restitution or the reconciliation? Where's the reconciliation? How can I reconcile with you? How can I reconcile? And if we can't reconcile, is there really a true peace between us? See, I can forgive you and walk on and have nothing else to do with you. But if we're going to work together, that reconciliation has to take place.
And we have to forgive because it's in law.
But how can I forgive without, so if I forgive you, how can I forgive you fully unless you restore what you took?
But forgiveness is forgiveness though, right? No? It's a certain percentage of forgiveness, or fully, or halfway, I'll forgive you halfway.
I offend you some kind of way. I steal from you. That's the offense. So I steal. You may forgive me, meaning you let it go.
Okay.
Right? So that's not a matter of percentage. That's a mindset.
Okay.
You let it go. You open your mind to us working things out. I never restore that which I took. Although you open your mind to allow us to come together, can you fully trust me ever again? You begin to trust me, fully trust me and work with me until I work towards restoring that which I took.
That was one of the laws tonight, right? To restore.
Mm-hmm. If I took one to stole one of your cow, I got to give the cow back plus what, 4 or 5 more back. So when I do that, now I'm showing myself to be of a repentant mind. Now you can say, okay, I can trust Brother Michael. He won't steal from me again. Making sense? You forgive me in the initial. Great. That's step one. That you forgive me of the offense. Cool. Nah, the forgiveness is just the mindset.
No, to give it back.
Yeah, that's the second part.
Okay.
That's the second part. Who has to come forward with the second part? I do. The one who did the offense.
Yeah, no, they're not ready to do that. They're not ready to give restitution to us because it's too deep. It's too hard for them. No,
They will lose power. They will
They're gonna lose everything.
If I remember, it, say that again? If, like, in, I think it's numbers, what, 35, something that you talk about. Well, blood cleanse, restitution, according to the Most High, I believe is going to have to be from their blood, because they polluted the land with blood, and so I think he's talking about. Yeah, that's the restitution. It's going to be hard to pay. They don't want to pay that.
They don't want to pay that. That's in Leviticus. That's Leviticus, what you're making reference to. No, the revolution. The Most High is going to do it. He says in Isaiah, "Who is this that cometh up from Bozrah?" Right? It's the Lord that's going to do this. So I'm not going to go on no street corner with no gun and say, "Ooh, you slave holder this, blase, 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 pop, 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 give me back what belongs." No, no, nothing of that. Right?
Numbers 35, 33. No. Write it down. Let's see what this is. Numbers 35 and 33. So ye shall not pollute the land.
Okay.
Wherein ye are. For blood it defiled the land. And the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it.
Okay. All praise.
That's what I was thinking about.
Okay. So, here we are. I'm almost done with this book. I'm on this last page, as a matter of fact. Okay. So, in 1770, under British policy, slavery in most colonies was classical chattel slavery, though there were various differences in colonial slavery laws. Chattel slaves were deemed to be property for many legal purposes and normally lacked civil rights of any kind. The widespread adoption in British and colonial law of property law principles as a basis for slavery law meant that slave owners would have the widest possible markets for slave property, the strongest possible legal protection for it, and the fewest legal impediments to its use. But slavery's influence on colonial society was broader than even its imperial military and police support economic prominence or protection through the law of slavery would suggest. Okay. And the last little part right here. American slavery was not just a brutal, oppressive labor system, as historians have shown. It was a multi-dimensional institution of social control, which the Tiki Torch March, social control, which is why, the case with the Ritter and the recent case with Rittenhouse and Ahmaud Arbery, why those two cases, we're like, what's going to happen with these two cases? What's going to happen with these two cases, right? And so now there's a backlash with the Rittenhouse case. I think I read a headline where they was trying to kick him out of school, that the children, or his fellow classmates don't want him attending the school or something like that. So he's getting some backlash to his winning, his verdict. Okay. But the other three, they got life sentences, I believe. Okay. But
Yeah,
What other three?
talking about the,
Ahmaud.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But then you have the cop who had beat up the undercover cop here in St. Louis.
yeah,
His face was all beat up and bruised up and so forth. And even his attorney was pleading for, I think, 10 years or something like that. Your Honor, he should not get more than 10 years. Whereas the prosecution was like, no, 25 years, blase, blase. At the end of the day, he got 1 year and some days, 1 year and a month.
A fine, maybe.
And so both sides was like, ooh, wow, you got away. You got off. Social control. Because that case, the everyday Joe in our community may not be familiar with that case. But the cops who patrol our communities, they're familiar with that case.
they own.
And so they got the mindset as they patrol the streets, you just a nigga.
Right. Chances are, I'm not gonna get that. Right.
I'm gonna get right. I can do this to you because I'm gonna get off. I'm a good old boy in the streets of St. Louis. In the streets of
Over and over, though.
correct. Correct. Social control. Okay. In the mainland colonies, it served as a means of enforcing racial separation and subordination, of limiting the cost of poor relief for the unemployed and disabled, and of controlling crime. These social control functions of slavery embedded it deeply in American culture. Okay, embedded deeply in American culture. The first video we watched, she had the pie, she put the apples, she said this thing is ingrained in our everyday life to the end. It's not a singular thing to identify. You can't identify the social issues of the modern day with one thing. You can't look at housing and say this is it. You can't.
And then she went beyond and say it's even more than the ones she put up there, the 5 she put up there.
Right. And here are two scholars. We saw the first scholar, the one lady. We saw the second scholar, the other lady, who have the data to make their claims that they are publishing, putting forth.
But with that image of the apple pie, and this is popular. Image is everything. Image is strong. Now that apple pie to Americans, they love that apple pie. So when they say something is as American as apple pie, that means they love it. And you know who they are. So injustice, the racism, what we're learning about today, they love it. That's what it says to me. That's why I say image is everything.
That the American pie is more so created to say this is for you all. The American pie is because we get this little slice. We don't get the opportunity to have the whole,
Oh, yeah.
right,
Mhm.
to where this is all about you all, and we only get a little slice of this American pie or 20-some percentage of it.
They don't care about us getting American pie. They just know they love racism. America loves racism. Period.
So the apple pie is more so for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. The apple
They
pie.
love it. They love
but
apple
it's
pie.
for them.
It's for them. You have no choice but to love it.
Yeah, would you not gonna love it?
Right. So, and which again, going back to restitution, then if we keep fighting for equality, and so on and so forth, and we keep rehashing what my man said back in 1992. Can't we just all get along? Rodney King. If you love me, or if you want to make things right, let's not even go and say if you love me. You want to make things right? Where's the money? Reach in your wallet, pull your wallet out, and give me money.
Or what about our own pie? Stereotyping. We say pie. Our unity. Where's our unity? So we can create the things that we need here. And have our own. Not say, have our own.
Mhm.
We got to have their apples. I mean, I'm just, yeah. But our unity for building communities and pulling our kids out of these public schools, this and that, and building and having this and that, and coming together, like you say, husband, wife, this, that, whatever. Our own, have our own pie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You
That's
heard.
not for us over there.
Not for
You've
them.
heard
I don't
the
want to be a part of it.
you've heard the term Stockholm syndrome.
Yes.
You know what it means. So
Oh, depending on those that actually do wrong by you, you start to feel bad for them and conform to thinking that that's okay or the norm, and so you protect that, or you live by it, or those standards.
so correct, and so that's where we are as a collective. That's where we are. So right, we talked about. We went to Leviticus to say, hey, if we keep in these laws, we can pursue these things. But the vast majority of us, we're not thinking in that manner. Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm. I can't do this because I don't want to give up this, because look what this has done for me, and or if I let this go, I'm afraid I may not be accepted or have a chance, and fear.
Mhm.
Correct. Right.
That's what it is. Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I've fallen in love with the man that kidnapped me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I will protect him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I will fight you.
That's protect.
That's what
Whatever
I'm
by
not
means
for.
and by any means necessary.
Right.
For my mask,
He did no wrong. That's where I'm at, where I am. He did no wrong.
Right.
Is we sick, master?
Right. Go to Jeremiah chapter 2. Start at verse 1.
I can hear.
Class continue.
Yes.
Jeremiah 2 in verse.
Verse 1.
In verse 1. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 2 and verse 1. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying,
Mm-hmm.
Go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem,
Read.
saying, Thus saith the Lord, I remember thee, the kindness of thy youth, the love of thy apostles. Did I say that right?
The love of thine espousals.
Espousals.
Mm-hmm.
When thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in a land that was not sown. Israel was holiness unto the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and the first fruits of his increase. All that devour him shall offend. Evil shall come upon them.
Okay.
Saith the Lord.
So he says, cry in the ears of Jerusalem, cry in the ears of Judah, Benjamin, Levi. Cry in the ears of them. And says, I remember when you was in love with me, the God who delivered you out of Egypt. I remember that. Do you remember when you was in love with me? That's what he's saying in this passage. I remember when you were in love with me. Do you remember when you were in love with me? Go to Exodus chapter 14, verse 31.
Book of Exodus, chapter 14 and verse 31. And Israel.
Start at verse 30.
Exodus chapter 14 and verse 30. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore.
Okay.
And Israel saw Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians.
Mm-hmm.
And the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord.
And did what to the Lord?
And believed the Lord.
They believed the Lord. Because Moses told them, I am has sent me to you all. The God of our forefathers has sent me to you all to deliver us from the hand of the oppressor. And as it were, they got to the edge of the river. The river parted ways, and the Lord delivered them so that they walked on dry ground, the Bible says. But yet, in came the Egyptians, and God killed them. Read it again.
And
31.
31. Exodus 14, 31. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses.
And his servant Moses. Okay, so when he says, don't you remember the kindness? Don't you remember when you espoused yourself to me? When you gave yourself to me? This is an event that we're talking about in Exodus, that we espoused ourselves to the Father. We believed in the Father. Go to Exodus chapter 15, verse 1.
Book of Exodus, chapter 15 and verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord.
What's the action that we're doing? Singing unto the Lord. You know you're in love when you're writing a song about the person. You in love. That's what they do on the radio, absolutely. Read on.
And spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea.
See, look how we recounting. We're recounting what he did for us. Ooh, I remember when we writing all this. Go ahead.
2, the Lord is my strength and song,
and
he is become my salvation.
Okay.
He is my God, and I will prepare him an habitation, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name.
Look at all these accolades these attributes that we are given to the Father, right? How you're wonderful, you're this, you're that, writing it in the song. Think of how many different melodies we had with this song. Read.
4. Pharaoh's chariots and his host had cast he into the sea.
Mm-hmm.
His chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea.
Read.
The depths have covered them. They sank into the bottom as a stone.
Mm-hmm.
Thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power.
Uh-huh.
Thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of thy excellency, thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sentest forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble.
To nothing. Read.
8. And with the blast of thy nostrils, the waters were gathered together. The flood stood upright as an heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. Though thou didst blow with thy wind, the sea covered them. They sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praise, doing wonders? Thou stretchest out thy right hand, the earth swallowed them. Though in thy mercy hast led forth the people, which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto thy holy habitation.
Mm-hmm.
The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestine. The dukes of Edom shall be amazed. The mighty men of Moab tremble shall take upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them. By the greatness of thy arm, they shall be as still as a stone, till thy people pass over, O Lord, till the people pass over which thou hast purchased. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established. The Lord shall reign the Lord shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and with his horsemen into the sea, and the Lord brought against the waters of the sea upon them. But the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. And who was this?
Miriam.
And Miriam, the prophetess, thanks. I was stumbling on that. The sister of Aaron took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dance.
See that? This is the affection. So go back to Jeremiah 2:2 one more time.
Say Jeremiah 2:2.
Yeah.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 2 and verse 2. Go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, thus saith the Lord, I remember thee, the kindness of thy youth, the love of thine, espousals.
That's right.
When thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in a land that was not sown.
You understand that word espousal, yes? Mm-hmm. When I gave yourself to me to be, yes. Okay. So we, children of Israel, being the feminine and God being the masculine, we gave ourselves as the wife to the Father. He says, I remember. He says, don't you remember? I remember the kindness you showed to me. You wrote songs about me, saying that I'm a man of war, this, that, and the third. Yeah, it was banging on the radio back in the day. Now where's the song at? Where's the song that you write for me now? No, you writing songs to other gods that are no gods. You know, you writing
songs to the sun god. You writing songs to the sun god.
To the sun god. That's why you come together on Sunday.
On Sunday in the church.
Mm-hmm. You writing songs to Christmas, to Tammuz. That's why you're keeping Christmas. You writing songs to Ishtar. That's why you come together on Easter. And so on and so forth. He says, you ain't writing songs about me no more. Don't you remember when you loved me? Go to Exodus chapter 24, verse 3.
The book of Exodus, chapter 24 and verse 3. And Moses came and told, excuse me, and Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord had said will we do.
Read. Look, we see submission right there. Whatever you want me to do. You want me to be in at 8 o'clock? I'll be in at 8 o'clock. You want me to mop the floor? I'll mop the floor. Whatever you want me to do. All these words you're telling me, we'll do. Read.
And excuse me, 4. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord and rose up early in the morning and built an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel.
Read.
And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Lord. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read the audience.
And read it in the audience.
In the audience of the people. And they said, all that the Lord hath said will we do, and be obedient.
Everything you read in that book, we're gonna do. Everything you read in the book. After he sprinkled the blood. That's why they said in Luke, let his blood be upon us. That was prophetic going back. And you realize it, going back to this right here. Read.
8. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words.
Okay, all right. So, and Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant. See, our ancestors made a blood covenant with the Most High God. Therefore, we made a blood covenant with the Most High God to do all the things in this book. All the things in this book. We made a covenant. So when we broke that covenant, he said, hey, you breaking vows with me. You breaking marriage vows. You going out on the marriage. You two-timing me.
I'm just thinking about something now. It just brings me back to a childhood. Watch these cowboy and Indian movies. When thinking about our Gad brothers, the Native Americans.
You say Gad?
Gad.
Gad. Oh.
Yeah. Whenever they want to make someone they make blood. And that, itself was like a covenant between see that's where they got that from. You know, just kind of proving to me that they are part of the children of Israel.
Oh, praises.
That's what made me.
Think on that. Go to Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 3.
Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 3.
We almost done.
The book of Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 3. Israel was holiness unto the Lord, and the first fruits of his increase. All that devour him shall offend.
All that devour him, all these nations that come against Israel and enslave him and continue to terrorize him after his iniquity, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna do you in. You put your hand on my son after his time of punishment was over. I'm gonna get you. Read.
Evil shall come upon them, saith the Lord.
Evil shall come. Now, I didn't write this down, but I want to go there with what I just said. I'm gonna back it up. I'm detouring one passage, one scripture. Ezekiel chapter 35, verse 5.
Ezekiel chapter 35 and verse 5. Ezekiel chapter 35 and verse 5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred.
What kind of hatred?
A perpetual hatred.
A perpetual hatred. And who is this talking to? This is talking about Esau. This is talking about Edom, the Idumeans. That's who this is talking about. Read.
Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity.
In the time of their calamity. This is what you did to the children of Israel. In the time of their calamity, the time of their distress, the time of their trouble. Read.
In the time that their iniquity had an end.
See, they committed trespass against me, and that trespass had a time marker on it. To the end, they would restore. It would, my being offended in them would be over. We can start working towards restoration. But in that time period that we would try to work towards restoration, you continue to afflict them. You continue to abuse them. I got to get you. I got to get you. Read on.
6. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood.
I will do what?
Prepare thee unto blood.
I got to get you. I got to get you. Read.
And blood shall pursue thee.
I got to get you. Read.
Since thou hast not hated blood.
Because you had no mercy. When you enslaved them and killed them left and right after the time period had ended, you show that you like blood. So wherein you like blood, I'm gonna give you some blood. I'm gonna give you some blood. I'm coming. Read.
Even blood shall pursue thee.
Even blood shall pursue thee. Read.
7. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate.
Mount Seir, right? So we look in time, we see, okay, well, who are the people that lived in Mount Seir? Who are the Edomites that live? This is where we know this is talking about Edom. Mount Seir. Okay. And so then we do some research and whatever. We understand who Mount Seir is today, modern day, which is Caucasians. Okay, so Mount Seir, Esau, Edom, Caucasians, all the same. I can call you Shamash, I can call you old man, I can call you, I can call you a derogatory term. It's all the same. Okay. All right. Now,
Can you finish that out?
because I was only detouring. Go to Ephesians chapter 1, verse 4. Because Israel was holiness unto the Lord, and the first fruits of its increase.
Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 4.
Ephesians chapter 1, verse 4.
The book of Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 4. According as he had chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love.
This is how we must behave now. This is how our mind has got to get to this place. We have to be blameless, holy. What's holy? Learning the laws and moving and operating according to the laws. Go to 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9.
The book of 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praise of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light.
Out of darkness into his marvelous light. You're in darkness when you okay with worshiping the Lord on a day that is not the Lord's day. You're in darkness. But you come into the marvelous light when you understand the truth of what the Bible says, and you understand the history of how we got to Sunday worship opposed to Saturday worship. And you come into the light and you start serving in the light, you become a royal priesthood, a royal nation. When you start viewing the scriptures and seeing that according to the scriptures, we didn't honor birthdays and worship birthdays. We don't give place to astrology. You're Cancer, Sagittarius. I'm a Libra. Blah 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 blah. The scripture doesn't give place to that, to those things. So we in darkness when we, just like the Geminis, this way and that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's when we in darkness. We come into the light when we say, I ain't got nothing to do with that. That's when we come into the light. I ain't got nothing to do with that. Okay. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 5 through 8. We almost done.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 2 and verse 5.
Start at verse 4.
Verse 4. Hear ye the words of the Lord, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, what iniquity have your fathers found in me, that they are gone far from me, and have walked after vanity, and are become vain.
This is God.
It's a question.
This is God saying, what is my sin? You mad at me? Is this why you're doing what you're doing? This why you misbehaving? Because I've offended you? Read.
6. Neither said they, where is the Lord that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, that led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and of pits, through a land of drought and of the shadows of death, through a land that no man passed through, and where no man dwelt.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought you into a plentiful country to eat the fruit thereof and the goodness thereof. But when ye entered, ye defiled my land and made my heritage an abomination.
Mm-hmm.
The priest said not, where is the law? And they that handled the law knew me not. The pastor also transgressed against me, and the prophets prophesied by all, and walked after things that do not profit.
Mm-hmm. And this happens right now today, right? We put our trust in everything but the Lord. But, what if? But, what about? But, how come? That's how we start our sentence off.
And that's driven by fear. Although, but, and if.
It may be driven by fear, but if let's say that it is driven by fear, it's still, you're not fearing the Lord. So you fear something else other than fearing the Most High. And you show your lack of trust in the Most High. Whatever the but, what if sentence is for that person. You know, the big one for women, especially in this truth, is having to be submissive. So the scripture says to a woman, be submissive to your husband in everything. Right? Get there real quick. Ephesians.
Let me not forget, I'm going to come back to
Okay.
2:9.
Okay.
To protect context on
All right.
what it's saying.
Ephesians chapter 5. And verse 24.
Ephesians 5:24.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The book of Ephesians, chapter 5, and verse 24. Therefore, if the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be their own husbands. Did I say wives?
Let the wives
So
be to.
let the wives be their own husbands.
Mm-mm. So let the wives be to their own. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. In like manner that the church will surrender to Christ, in the same like fashion, wives, be that way to your husband.
I'm sorry.
Right? And so this is a big one. Okay? But what if he's steering me the wrong way? But what if? But okay. So
this is to a righteous.
Correct.
To a
Correct.
what now?
A righteous man.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
I just want to make sure I heard.
Oh, but
Okay,
we will go to Samuel and point that out too now. We'll point that out. But
I'm sorry. Anyway, it's all right.
So, but yes, this is, we expect that this is a righteous man that we are dealing with. Yes, we expect, but therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, as the church, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands. Paul is giving instruction to the church of Ephesus, period. Why is he giving instruction? Because there's issues in the church of Ephesus. You got issues with the men, you got issues with the women. So yes, we are dealing with, this is written to the church of Ephesus. So we're dealing with the people that are in the church, in the body. But we got men and women who are out of order. So even in being out of order, the instruction, wives, submit to your husbands in everything. And we'll deal with the men. We're going to instruct him. We're going to come down on him and instruct him how he's supposed to lead his house. In that, we're going to deal with him and instruct him how to lead his house. Wives, submit to him in everything. He want me to make him some roast tuna. I don't know where roast tuna came from, but roast him some tuna. I don't want to roast no tuna. It stink. Right? So I'm tired of roast tuna. He make enough money. He can buy some turkey. Whatever her argument is to him, she's arguing to his request, his leadership, his guidance. She's chest bumping him. She's not submitting. If he's bringing forth something that's out of order, then Peter's taught the women how to deal with it in that regard. Okay? So, but nonetheless, submit to this man in everything. Okay? Otherwise, in Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 8, the priest said, not, where is the Lord? You didn't put your trust in God. Here it is. This is your husband. And what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. So now, why are you not calling on the Lord concerning your husband? What have you? Right? This is just an example of the countless examples that we can come up with. Okay? Continue on, verse 9.
Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 9. Wherefore will I yet plead with you, says the Lord, and with your children's children will I plead.
Will I plead with your children's children? Now, hold Jeremiah, go to Exodus chapter 20, verse 5.
Call that again.
Exodus chapter 20, verse 5.
Exodus.
Yes, 20 verse 5.
The book of Exodus chapter 20 verse 5. Thou shalt not bow down them thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generations of them that hate me.
Mm-hmm. Someone plead with your children's children upon the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So we're getting into regeneration.
Hmm.
We're getting into regeneration.
Now, the reason I asked about the context of chapter 9,
Verse 9.
Verse 9. That word, plead.
I'm going to deal with them. I am going to deal with them.
Okay.
Okay.
What was that you're talking about?
Jeremiah 2 and 9.
2 and 9, okay.
See, because that word plead can also mean
Kill.
kill.
Yeah. I'm going to deal with them.
Mm.
I'm going to, we read earlier, make them a base. In Daniel earlier tonight, we spoke about making a base. I'm going to deal with them. So to the end that I might have to kill them.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to clarify that.
Right? But that word plead means I'm going to apply some pressure.
Okay, in that context.
Right. I mean, I'm going to apply some pressure, right? Which is, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
I'm going to apply some pressure.
So when you were talking about the generation, third, fourth generation, okay, is that the same as when I was here the last time? You were talking about
Regeneration.
yes, coming back around after the third, fourth generation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You heard me say earlier tonight, our ancestors.
Yes.
We are our ancestors.
It may have been something else you said that kind of like brought me back to that, but it could have possibly been that. So.
Mm-hmm. Right. Go back to Jeremiah. Jump to verse 13.
Sorry,
2 and 13.
Chapter 2, verse 13.
Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 13. For my people have committed to evil.
Mm.
They have forsaken me, the fountain of living water,
Mm-hmm.
and hewed me out.
And hewed them out.
And hewed them out. What is that?
Cisterns. Mm-hmm.
Cistern.
Mm-hmm.
Broken cisterns that can hold no water.
You got gods that can't do nothing for you. You walked away from me. I'm the God that can do everything for you. You got your trust in Tylenol. That's your God. Why don't you take some Tylenol? Help you with the pain. Instead of, did I, the Lord, send you to a physician? I'm just don't.
Okay. Don't let this.
Right.
Yeah.
These are now the scripture advocates, lets us know that we can use medicine. Okay. But we will run to medicine. We'll run to medicine before consulting the Lord. So should we go to the doctor? Yes. Yes, go to the doctor. Should you go get this examined and get that examined? Yes, yes. But don't call on some tarot cards. Tarot card. Should I go to the doctor?
Please help me.
Let me go read my horoscope so
Oh
I
my
can see
God,
what's
that's
going
my
on.
daughter. Oh my God.
See, we're calling on the wrong thing.
And then move that stuff in my house.
Right. So
What's that?
Go to Jeremiah 17:13. We're almost done, y'all. I need maybe 10 more minutes. Try to speed this up.
Say 17 and 13.
Yes.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, and verse 13.
Mm-hmm.
O Lord, the hope of Israel, all that forsake thee shall be ashamed, and they that depart from me be written in the earth, because they have forsaken the Lord, the fountain of living water.
So this is what becomes of us that reject the Most High. Okay, go to Psalms 36:9.
The book of Psalms, chapter 36, and verse 9. For with thee is the fountain of life. In thy light shall we see light.
In thy light shall we see light. The laws. Go to John chapter 4, verse 14.
Book of John, chapter 4, and verse 14. For whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst.
This is Christ speaking.
But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life.
Right, because Christ embodied the law. The light that we see in him shall be a light for us. And so when we see that light and then we drink from his water, that means his words, we embody his words. Now we meditate day in and day out, and we making connections like never before. Man, we start to see
Just bringing it to you all day long.
all day. We seeing connections. Reading this book, reading this, we making connections. Go to Revelation chapter 21, verse 6.
The book of Revelation, chapter 21, and verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
And he said unto me, it is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is
A thirst.
of the fountain of the water of life freely.
Freely. Right? You don't have to pay for this. You're not purchasing your redemption. I purchased it for you. You stole the cattle. You don't have to give back 5 cattle in return. I paid the 5 cattle in return. All you got to do is come back. Come back and learn. Learn of me. Learn of me. Walk according to how I am telling you to walk. And everything I tell you is that of the Father. I speak not my own words, but of he that sent me. Learn of me.
You say you don't have to return the cattle?
Right. He says, I gave you this freely. Since we read about, stealing cattle and what have you, and repaying.
Okay.
So in terms of us
Okay.
to the Father, in terms of us to Christ,
Gotcha.
right? Because we are guilty. So we owe restitution to our guilt. Okay? But Christ is saying, nah, I paid the price for you. You stole one cow, 5 is I paid it for you. Bloodshed is what's due. I paid it for you. I shed my blood. I paid the price for you. You don't have to shed no blood. All I desire of you is to learn of me and walk according to what I instruct.
Which is holy.
which is holiness,
Holy.
right?
Right.
So the Bible says, keep the Sabbath day. All I'm asking of you, keep the Sabbath day. Don't pollute my Sabbath.
I just want to make sure not connecting to what we said earlier, making sure.
Right? So I'm asking you, I'm telling you to do this. I'm asking you to do this. I'm telling you to do this. I'm asking you to do that. All I ask you to do is to do as I'm telling or asking you to do. Other than that, you don't have to pay nothing.
That's right, because obedience is better than sacrifice. Yes, obedience is better than sacrifice. Is that what we
Last week.
Yeah.
Last week. Okay. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 14.
The book of Jeremiah, you said chapter 2
And verse 14.
verse 14. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 2 and verse 14. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave?
Is he a homeborn slave, born in Virginia, birthed to be a slave? To the end, we are oppressed today. To the end, we are the ones that make up the ghettos. To the end, we are the ones that predominantly work at Walmart, McDonald's, all the low wage earning jobs that there is.
Yeah, I can see this question, Jeremiah asking that because, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? In other words, we were slaves in Persian captivity, Roman captivity, the Arabs. So, I guess he would ask that, are we homeborn slaves?
Read on.
15. The young lions.
Why is he?
Why is he spoiled?
Why is he spoiled? Why is he damaged? Why is he ruined? Spoiled milk. Spoiled roasted tuna. Exodus chapter 4, verse 22. I'm trying to go faster, y'all. Yeah. Exodus chapter 4, verse 22.
Exodus chapter 4 and verse 22. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn.
So in other words, no, he's not a servant. He's not a homeborn slave. No, Israel is the son of the Most High. Firstborn son of the Most High. Okay, go to Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. Hosea chapter 11, verse 1.
The book of Hosea, chapter 11 and verse 1. When Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt.
Called my son out of Egypt. Okay. Go to Romans chapter 9, verse 4.
The book of Romans, chapter 9 and verse 4. Who are Israelites? To whom pertaineth the adoption?
The adoption belongs to the children of Israel. You're not slaves and servants. No, you are the Israelites. Everything belongs to you, for you. Read.
And the glory.
And
the covenant.
And the covenants. What's this mess about Islam? There's no covenant promised to Ishmael. Read.
And the giving of the law.
The law comes from the Israelites. The law that's going to govern the land. Read.
And the service of God.
And the service of God. We're the ones that interact with the Most High God, the only true living God. Read.
And the promises.
And the promises. And the promises. Every promise in this book is going to happen. Okay. Go to James chapter 1, verse 18. I'm trying to go fast, y'all.
Book of James, chapter 1 and verse 18. Of his son will beget he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures.
That we should be a kind of first fruits of his creation, of his creatures. I'm sorry, of his creatures. That's who we are. We are. This is who we are. Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 1.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 4 and verse 1. If thou wilt return, O Israel, saith the Lord, return unto me. And if thou wilt put away thine abominations out of my sight, then shalt thou not remove.
Then y'all shall not be removed. You can come together. You can build communities together. Go to Genesis chapter 35, verse 2. I'm getting there.
The book of Genesis, chapter 5, 35.
Genesis chapter 35, verse 2.
Book of chapter 35, verse 2. Then Jacob said unto his household, and to all that were with him, put away the strange gods, and be clean, and change your garments.
Change your garments. Put on garments of righteousness. Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 15. Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 15.
Deuteronomy chapter 27 and verse 15. Cursed be the man that maketh any graven or molten images, an abomination unto the Lord, the work of the hands of the craftsman, and put it in a secret place.
Mm-hmm.
And all the people shall answer and say, Amen.
Amen. Okay. Jeremiah 22, verse 3 through 5.
Jeremiah chapter 22, verse 3. Thus saith the Lord, execute ye judgment in righteousness, and deliver the spoil out of the hand of the oppressor,
Mm-hmm.
and do no wrong, do no violence to the stranger, the fatherless, nor the widow, neither shed innocent blood in this place. For if you do this thing indeed, then shall there enter in by the gates of this house kings sitting upon the throne of faith, riding in chariots and on horses, he and his servants and his people. But if you will not hear these words, I swear by myself, said the Lord, that this house shall become a desolation.
House shall become a desolation. Finally, two more. Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 6.
Book of Jeremiah, chapter 4, verse 6. Set up the standard toward Zion.
Mm-hmm.
Retire, stay not, for I will bring evil from the north and a great destruction.
Set up the standard toward Zion. The standard is the Bible. This is our Constitution. Go to Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 2, and we'll conclude there.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, and verse 2. Declare ye among the nations, and publish and set up a standard. Publish a conceal not, and conceal not. Say, Babylon is taken. Bel is confounded. What is that?
Merodach.
Merodach is broken in pieces. Her idols are confounded. Her images are broken in pieces.
So the standard is this Bible. This last passage tells us to declare this standard to Babylon, to the nations. So we don't care nothing about your holidays, your holidays, should we say. We don't care about your Thanksgiving. We don't care about your Christmas. We don't care about your St. Patrick's Day. We don't care about your whatever, Easter, Valentine. We don't care nothing about it. If it's not sanctioned here in the Bible, we care nothing like it. And with that, we say shalom. Any questions?